Most of the interstitial fluid is returned directly to the capillaries. Means the pressure that drives the movement of fluid from the interstitial fluid back into the capillaries is osmotic pressure. Osmotic pressure draws fluid back in. But a little amount of this fluid passes through a system of lymphatic capillaries. Means lymphatic capillaries are microscopic thin-walled vessels. Vessels means lymph vessels are thin-walled vessels that convey lymph. Lymph vessels are part of the lymphatic system which works in tandem with the cardiovascular system. Ducts. Ducts means the function of the duct is to transport lymph back into the circulatory system. Lymph capillaries of the small intestine villi are called lacteals. And finally reach the blood through the subclavian veins. Subclavian veins means subclavian veins is classified as a vein and is the major venous system. The which site most important site of formation of what lymph is interstitial space, as blood passes through which capillaries? Blood capillaries. Some portion of blood that includes what? Water, solutes and proteins of low molecular weight passes through the walls of what? Capillaries. Into the which spaces? Interstitial spaces, due to which pressure? Hydrostatic pressure. At the which ends? Arteriolar ends. This fluid forms the which fluid? Interstitial fluid. Most of the which fluid? Interstitial fluid is returned directly to the where? Capillaries. But how much amount of this fluid passes? Little amount of this fluid passes through a system of which capillaries? Lymphatic capillaries. And what? Vessels, ducts, and finally reach the blood through the which veins? Subclavian veins. The most important site of formation of lymph is interstitial space, as blood passes through blood capillaries. Some portion of blood that includes water, solutes and proteins of low molecular weight passes through the walls of capillaries into the interstitial spaces due to hydrostatic pressure at the arteriolar ends. This fluid forms the interstitial fluid. Most of the interstitial fluid is returned directly to the capillaries, but a little amount of this fluid passes through a system of lymphatic capillaries, vessels, ducts, and finally reach the blood through the subclavian veins. This extracellular tissue fluid that passes into the lymph capillaries and lymph vessels is called lymph. Lymphatic system represents an accessory route by which interstitial fluid flows from tissue spaces into the blood. This extracellular tissue fluid means fluid outside the cell that passes into the lymph capillaries. Lymph capillaries means lymph capillaries are thin-walled blood vessels found in the tissue. Lymph capillaries are also known as lymphatic capillaries. And lymph vessels. Lymph vessels means lymph vessels carry lymph, a colorless fluid originating from interstitial fluid in the tissues. Lymph vessels are thin-walled vessels, tubes structured like blood vessels that carry lymph as part of the lymphatic system. Lymph vessels are complementary to the cardiovascular system. Is called lymph. Lymphatic system represents an accessory route by which interstitial fluid flows from the tissue spaces into the blood. Means the pathway of lymph is an open channel where the lymphatic fluid circulates. Lymph can move from tissue spaces into blood. The lymph typically moves from lymph vessels to lymph ducts and finally reach into the subclavian veins. This which tissue fluid, extracellular tissue fluid that passes into the which capillaries, lymph capillaries, and which vessels, lymph vessels, is called what? Lymph. Which system, lymphatic system, represents an which route? Accessory route by which fluid flows, interstitial fluid flows from the which spaces, tissue spaces into the where blood. This extracellular tissue fluid that passes into the lymph capillaries and lymph vessels is called lymph. Lymphatic system represents an accessory route by which interstitial fluid flows from the tissue spaces into the blood. I am explaining you 11th one. Describe the structure of a skeletal muscle. Structure of a skeletal muscle. A skeletal muscle fiber is a long, cylindrical and unbranched cell. It is a multinucleated cell with many oval nuclei, characteristically in the peripheral cytoplasm. A skeletal muscle fiber means skeletal muscle fiber are striated. A skeletal muscle is made up of skeletal muscle fibers. Skeletal muscle cell is also called as muscle. It is usually attached to skeletal structures by tendons. Is a long, cylindrical and unbranched cell means the cells of this tissue are long, cylindrical and unbranched cell. Because skeletal muscle cells are long and cylindrical, they are commonly referred to as muscle fibers. It is multinucleated cell. Multinucleated cell means skeletal muscle fiber are striated multinucleated cells and are shaped like long fiber. Each muscle fiber is multinucleated with many oval nuclei. Many means more than one nucleus. Oval nuclei means rounded like an egg, characteristically in the peripheral cytoplasm. Peripheral refers to the forming. Cytoplasm means the cytoplasm of a muscle fiber is called sarcoplasm. Cytoplasm is present in every type of living cell. A Which muscle fiber? Skeletal muscle fiber is a what? Long, cylindrical and which cell and branch cell? It is a which cell? Multinucleated cell. With how many nuclei? With many oval nuclei, characteristically in the which cytoplasm? Peripheral cytoplasm. A skeletal muscle fiber is a long, cylindrical and unbranched cell. It is a multinucleated cell with many oval nuclei, characteristically in the peripheral cytoplasm. Sarcoplasm has many myofibrils which show alternate dark and light bands. So it is also called striped or striated muscle. Skeletal muscle usually works under the conscious control of an organism, hence it is also called voluntary muscle. Sarcoplasm means the cytoplasm of a muscle fiber is called sarcoplasm. Has many myofibrils means the cytoplasm of a muscle fiber has many myofibrils which show alternate dark bands means the myofibril is composed of alternating bands. The A bands anisotropic appear dark in color and light bands means I bands isotropic appear light in color. So it is also called striped muscle. Striped muscle means the striped appearance is due to this muscle dark and light bands which appear in an alternate fashion. Striated muscle. Striated muscle means striated muscle in the bodies that have a striped appearance. Skeletal muscle usually works under the conscious control of an organism means skeletal muscle attached to bones is responsible for skeletal movements. The peripheral portion of the central nervous system controls the skeletal muscles. Thus, these muscles are under conscious control or voluntary control. Hence, it is also called voluntary muscle. Voluntary muscle. Voluntary muscle means the muscle whose function can be controlled are known as voluntary muscles. Which has many myofibrils. Sarcoplasm has many myofibrils which show which bands alternate dark and light bands. So it is also called which muscle? Striped or striated muscle. Which muscle? Skeletal muscle usually works under the which control conscious control of an what organism. Hence it is also called which muscle? Voluntary muscle. Sarcoplasm has many myofibrils which show alternate dark and light bands. So it is also called striped or striated muscle. Skeletal muscle usually works under the conscious control of an organism, hence it is also called voluntary muscle. Skeletal muscle contracts quickly and undergoes fatigue quickly. They are innervated by the somatic nervous system. Skeletal muscle contracts quickly and undergoes fatigue quickly means skeletal muscle contains muscle fibers composed of myofibrils. They are made up of sarcomeres which have myosin and actin filaments. Muscles gets fatigued due to accumulation of lactic acid. They are innervated. Innervated means the somatic nervous system is a component of the peripheral nervous system associated with voluntary control of the body movements and the use of skeletal muscles. By the somatic nervous system, somatic nervous system means the somatic nervous system is made up of nerves. Skeletal muscles are voluntary muscles under the control of the somatic nervous system. Which muscle, skeletal muscle, contracts what quickly and undergoes what quickly? Fatigue quickly. They are innervated by the which nervous system? Somatic nervous system. Skeletal muscle contracts quickly and undergoes fatigue quickly. They are innervated by the somatic nervous system. Satellite cells are quiescent, mononucleate, and myogenic cells and help in regeneration, which is limited. Satellite cells. Satellite cells means they are small multipotent cells with very little cytoplasm found in mature muscle. Satellite cells able to give rise to satellite cells, or they will be differentiated into skeletal muscle cells, are quiescent. Quiescent means being inactive. So when a muscle cell undergo injury, this quiescent satellite cell are released from the basement membrane and become active, and they re-enter the cell cycle. So these cells are existing with a muscle fiber and facilitate growth and repair. Mononucleate means mononucleate cells fixed between the basement membrane and plasma membrane of the muscle fiber. And myogenic cells. Myogenic cells means is the formation of skeletal muscular tissue formed during embryonic development and help in regeneration, which is limited. Means satellite cells are have with a limited power of regeneration. They are actually myosatellite cells or muscle stem cells. Which cells, satellite cells, are what? Quiescent, mononucleate, and which cells? Myogenic cells. And help in what? Regeneration, which is what? Limited. Satellite cells are quiescent, mononucleate, and myogenic cells and help in regeneration, which is limited. Guys, if you like my video, please click like and subscribe to my Easy Learning channel.